Welcome to part 2 of Deconstruction. Picking up where we left off from part 1, Jacques Derrida coined a term in French. That term is différance. And the pun is in French, différance can mean to defer, to postpone, or delay. And it sounds a lot like the word for to differ, to be different from. This is a key term in deconstruction. Here's how it works. When we first encounter a sign, such as cow, you would think that it immediately points to a signifier. But in reality, we hold off, we wait, we defer. Because is this really the cow that sign refers to? I mean, it could also be that kind of a cow, which to me doesn't look like a prototypical cow. It's a little too shaggy, furry, maybe the wrong color. Then there's Bart Simpson's Don't Have a Cow Man, and I don't think he's really talking about either of the previous two cows. And what if you were at a cat show and your friend walked up to you and said, "Have you seen the cow?" It means something completely different. So in conversation, when you hear a word, when a sign is used, you hold off, you wait to see exactly where that sign is pointing. Another example would be bug. I think we did this one in class already, but bug, what do you think of first? Is it the insect? Is it the car? Is it the listening device? You wait. You have to see what the context is. And now we're back to intertextuality. So, deconstruction shows how a close examination of the language in a text inevitably reveals conflicting, contradictory impulses which deconstruct or break down the text's apparent unity. And here we finally get to the source of the name. We are deconstructing the idea that the text has one interpretation, one correct interpretation. It has unity. And it, again, flies straightly in the face of new criticism. And a lot of this is because of that différance, waiting. The fact that the sign can point to more than one signifier at the same time. The places where those conflicting, contradictory impulses break down the text's apparent unity are places where a critic would say the author misspeaks or he loses control of the language. And this happens very frequently. Thus, language can never say only and exactly what we intend it to mean, but rather calls into being an endless web of possible meanings that can never be fully untangled. And one of the issues here is if the word cow, for example, can point 4 or 5 different directions, and every other word in the sentence can point in 4 or 5 directions, it quickly adds up and grows exponentially. It's 4 times 5 times 6 times 9, depending on how many different references there are for the different words used in a sentence. Hence, the possible meanings are endless, and it can never be fully untangled. For example, many years ago at Grace, received a piece of literature that had this. This was the purpose statement: pursuing a Christ-centered commitment to our mission through accountable, collaborative, and supportive effort. Second part of that, teamwork is a path. Path marker number 1. Christ-centered commitment is our foundation. And then the question, where do I stand? Now, what's implied by a path? Isn't it motion? You walk down a path, you move from one place to another along a path. And a path marker then is something, a signpost that tells you where you are and perhaps where you want to go. But now we move to a Christ-centered commitment is our foundation. Foundations don't move. Foundations are not associated with traveling from getting one place to another. A foundation supports a building. And where do I stand? Again, no movement. So with this effort, teamwork, are we moving from one place to another? Or are we building a building? Are we changing? Are we staying the same? You see how you can get conflict there? You can have people in the same organization saying, let's move forward, let's change, let's achieve our goals. And other people saying, no, 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 we need to hold on to what we've built. We need to strengthen the foundation. We don't want change. And both impulses are there. Both impulses contradict each other. Methodology. How does deconstruction work? It's fairly simple, actually. The goal of deconstruction is to override the logocentric and inherited ways of viewing a text. That's the either-or way. It's good or bad. It's light or dark. And the inherited ways. So the point of deconstruction is we want to tear down the traditional views of a text in order to make room for another way of seeing it. So, first step. Recognize the binary oppositions present within the text. These binary oppositions represent the established ideologies which are based on transcendental signified. Whether that transcendental signified is God, or whether it's a cultural value like freedom, or that men are better than women. There's all kinds of these transcendental signifieds over time that have given meaning to literary texts. So, first thing you do is recognize the binary opposition. These oppositions then restrict meaning because they assume only one fixed interpretation of reality. So what we want to do is turn it on its head. So, look for what is taken to be natural, self-evident, respected, or worthy of emulation. In the columns we did, this would be the plus column. White Americans, for example, are inherently virtuous, especially when compared to fill in the blank. Mediterranean peoples are spontaneous and open towards strangers, as opposed to Northern Europeans, who are more controlled and closed. Women are naturally nurturing, more connected to the earth, as opposed to, men. Men are best at math and science. Step 2. Demonstrate the inherent instability in the hierarchy assumed by the binary opposition. Here, to do this, you show how something is represented as primary, complete, and original is in fact derived, composite, and or the effect of something else. Or you can show how something represented as being completely different from another thing exists only by virtue of defining itself in relation to the other. Light is totally separate from darkness. Well, is it? Third, show how something represented as normal is actually a special case. Let's go for an example. Let's identify a binary opposition. This is one we really believe in as English majors, that a book is better than the TV show or a movie made from the book. I mean, the books are just longer, they're more complex, you can develop the characters, you can have a much more complex plot. TV shows often limit the plot, cut out parts, or put in elements that aren't in the book. So let's reverse the polarity. TV shows and movies, then, are better than books. And let's give it a specific example. The Winnie the Pooh movies and TV series are better than the books by A.A. Milne. So let's look at the evidence. Careful here, we don't want to settle for shock value. We deconstruct the hierarchy itself by showing its instability. Thus we're saying books are more complete, complex, more original than movies or TV shows. Turn that around and say that our understanding of Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne is derived from the TV show rather than the actual books. So, the facts. Milne wrote 2 books, Winnie the Pooh in 1926 and The House at Pooh Corner in 1928. In contrast, we have all these movies made, plus The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which went for 5 seasons and 100 episodes. And there's probably been more since I did this PowerPoint. Just looking at the artwork, which one do you identify with more? For most Americans, it's going to be the picture in the top left-hand corner. Those are the characters that we really know, not the scribbles of Shepard from 1966. Conclusion then. Our sense of Winnie the Pooh books is derived from the TV show and the Disney movies rather than the originals. Here's another example from Hamlet. Let's take a very fundamental binary opposition, hero versus villain. The central character of a book or a play, generally the hero. The main character arrayed against the hero, then, is the villain. So for most people, Hamlet is the hero, Claudius is the villain. Hamlet's the hero simply because most of the play is about him. We hear him speak the most. The camera, if you will, is on him for much of the time. Heroes, then, are virtuous. Villains are despicable. This is the constellation of values, things that attach themselves. If a hero is good, how is he good? He's virtuous. So let's take a look at this. Claudius, despicable. Doesn't he murder Hamlet Sr. and then marry Gertrude? Oh, that's like incest. Awful. Terrible. And then he recruits Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to spy on their friend Hamlet. I mean, he's betraying a friendship there. He sends Hamlet to England to be executed. That's dirty. That's underhanded. And when that doesn't work, he conspires with Laertes to kill Hamlet and provides the poison in the wine that he offers to Hamlet in case the poisoned sword doesn't work. Nasty stuff. But what about Hamlet? Hamlet feigns madness. I mean, he's the crown prince. He pretends he's insane, throws the entire court into confusion. He spurns Ophelia. Teenage lovers, what can you expect? But he also turns Gertrude against her husband. Now, that's pretty serious. Turning the queen against the king. And then he murders Polonius. And the effect of murdering Polonius, it just ripples throughout the play. This forces Claudius to act, to send him to England to be executed. He's nuts. He's become a public nuisance. He's now murdered the main counselor. We have to get rid of this guy. It causes Ophelia's death. It spurs Laertes to revolt, and now you have civil unrest in the state. He also engineers Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's deaths. Remember how he switches the notes, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are executed then by the King of England. He causes Gertrude's death, because she's now firmly on his side, wants to encourage him, pledges him with the wine, which Claudius has poisoned. She dies. And finally, he kills Laertes and the king. So, where Claudius, if we accept that he actually murdered Hamlet Sr., murders two people, Hamlet and his father, Hamlet kills Polonius, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Laertes, Claudius, and is directly responsible for two other deaths, Ophelia and Gertrude. So, who's the villain?